Around 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to hike Havasupai. And if you're familiar with Havasupai, it is part of the Grand Canyon that has this amazing natural feature in the water that makes the water look aqua blue. It is absolutely extraordinary. It's this mineralization that colors the water and then also has the effect of creating these almost indescribable waterfall features. If you've ever seen people pile or arrange champagne glasses in like a pyramid, and then they start pouring the champagne in the top one, and um, it slowly spills down into all the other champagne glasses. It has the effect of looking like that. So there's these just the water itself is extraordinary. And then there's a handful of extraordinary, great big waterfalls, but then all of these smaller mineralized deposits, waterfalls. So just throw into your favorite search engine, Havasupai Falls, and check it out. It's extraordinary. And it's extraordinarily challenging to access. It is really hard to get down there. And the first part and the last part, as it is you're just going down the face of a mountain, and it's these incredible switchbacks. And if you're not familiar with the switchback, you can go ahead and throw that into your favorite search engine as well. But it's very, very challenging. And it's not, that part is not necessarily dangerous. It's just very taxing physically. And when we were going down at one of the switchbacks, about halfway down, we came upon the carcass of a dead horse that had been burned. And it's like, oh my goodness, it was very startling because you're right next to the thing. And I asked the guide, and he said, that was the boss's favorite horse. I was like, oh no. And what had happened is the horse had broken its leg, and there's nothing else to do. They had to, unfortunately, put the animal down, and then they had to burn it because they couldn't have this massive rotting carcass. I apologize for the language and the visual, but they couldn't have this dead horse just rotting for however many weeks that it would take. So the poor guide, the poor gentleman whose favorite horse broke its leg, they had no option but to put the animal down, so kill the horse and then burn its body. It's pretty rough, and obviously making matters worse, it was the guy's favorite horse. Moral of the story is you got to keep moving. Got to do whatever it takes to keep moving. This is their livelihood is guiding people from the top of the mountain down to Havasupai Falls and then back up. Got to keep it moving. That's the whole thing. So, what's the point of this? Well, I think that in a lot of ways, the prime directive of human beings and humanity is to keep things moving. And it's easy for us to get stuck. It's easy for us to get stuck ruminating on bad things that have happened in the past, things we're worried about in the future. It's very, very common for us to just get ourselves stuck going through the motions and defining ourselves by really bad things that have happened to us in the past. And while I'm certainly a thoughtful person, I also recognize that oftentimes, more often than not, ruminating is an unhealthy thing that just keeps us stuck, and it keeps us from realizing our fullest ultimate potential and for keeping things moving. So, while I never want to say that we want to ignore our feelings, we just don't want our feelings to be in control of us. I don't want to ruminate. I need to get out of my head. I need to get out of my feels. I need to get back to work. I need to keep things moving. There is a there's one of my favorite stories. One of my favorite stories has always been the story about Cortez when he showed up on the Yucatan Peninsula and he was going after all the gold. And he brings all of his men together one last time before they go into battle and he says, "Burn the ships." And everybody sort of looked around like, "What?" It's like, "Yep, if we're going home, it's going to be on their ships." So with that, it changed everything. It changed the dynamic. They removed their only escape route. So the only way forward was through. They were going to win, get all the gold, or they were going to die because there was no escape. So the whole death ground scenario, it's a powerful thing. And then recently I was like, I wonder, put yourselves, I get Cortez. Cortez was, I mean, legendary quest for riches and conquest, and probably a really terrible person. Just like, most of us are pretty terrible people. Um, and probably Cortez was maybe one of the worst. But imagine putting yourself in the shoes of his men. Like, what did Cortez just say? Did he just tell us to burn the ships? You know that those are our ships, and those are the only way we're getting out of here. They're looking around. They're like, what the WTF? So that is evidence right there because they all bought in. Spoiler alert, it worked out for those guys. Those guys were bought in. So not only Cortez was he driven and a total psycho, just guessing, but he was a wonderful leader and just understood the psychology behind this idea of death ground, that the only way out is through. Um, and it turns out that there are many different examples of this throughout history. And it's what I wanted to share with you because I think it's pretty cool. So Chang Zhu at the Battle of Julu in China, Chinese General Zhang Yu ordered his men to sink their boats and destroy their cooking pots after crossing the Zhang River to face the opposing army. Sink the boats, destroy the cooking pots. They didn't have any way to stay in a long campaign, and so they fought with just ferocity, and they won, despite being heavily outnumbered. In Spain, and the leader in this example, it's a tough name. It's Tariq Ibn Ziyad. He was leading his forces across the Strait of Gibraltar, and he reportedly burned his ships and told his men, "Behind you is the sea, before you is the enemy." Whew, that gives me chills right now. Behind you is the sea, before you is the enemy. What happened? Spoiler alert. His army defeated the Visigoths, beginning centuries of Muslim rule in the Iberian Peninsula. The lesson, of course, being removing escape transformed a risky invasion into a defining conquest. William the Conqueror, after landing in England, he ordered his fleet dismantled to prevent any thought of retreat. His Norman forces remained fully committed, culminating in the victory at the Battle of Hastings and the Norman conquest of England. The Texan defenders at the Alamo. The Alamo. Surrounded by Santa Anna's army, the Texan defenders were offered terms of surrenders, but famously refused all retreat, knowing that reinforcements might not even arrive in time. They were overwhelmed and killed, but their stand galvanized Texas forces and remained and became a rallying cry, "Remember the Alamo," for the ultimate victory at San Jacinto. So that didn't necessarily work out in real time, but they became the motivation, the inspiration for winning the ultimate war. Shaka Zulu. Shaka often deployed warriors in a way that encircled the enemy and blocked escape routes for both sides, ensuring that his own troops could not easily disengage. So that it forced maximum aggression and helped the Zulu kingdom dominate southern Africa. The Dunkirk evacuation, stay or die. The move, though not self-imposed, many of the Allies found themselves cut off on the French coast with no retreat except the ocean. So commanders ordered defensive last stand actions to buy time for evacuation. The resolve under certain destruction allowed hundreds of thousands of soldiers to escape a modern death ground scenario where necessity forged extraordinary courage. Not in a wartime scenario, but Ernest Shackleton, his Arctic expedition, or rather Antarctic expedition, their ship was crushed by the ice. And Shackleton, understanding what was going on and what was at stake, he destroyed any unnecessary gear and told his crew, "We must live off the ice. We must live off the ice." What a savage. Holy cow. So retreat was impossible. There's nowhere to go. So survival demanded bold improvisation. Those are obviously extraordinary circumstances. But do you see prudence in manufacturing some version of death ground in your life? I certainly do. And I'm not one that is pursuing life or death scenarios on a daily basis, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I am pursuing urgency. I am pursuing a sense of urgency. And I know that complacency is the enemy of productive growth. And I certainly know that apathy is the destroyer of organizations and careers and everything. Apathy destroys everything. So how do we rekindle that fire? And again, I'm not advocating for any kind of an infinity war. This is not some form of hustle porn where you put yourself on death ground every morning and you redline it. No, not saying that. But how do we remind ourselves consistently that we don't have time? That to accomplish the big goals that you have for yourself, your family, your community, the things that you want, we must operate with that sense of urgency. Common threads are remove the safety net, or at least limit it. Signal total commitment to those around you. If you're running an organization or a team, they have to know, just as Cortez's men knew, that he was committed. And we want to turn any desperation that we have into courage and creativity. Reminding ourselves that when retreat is impossible, the human spirit can reach astonishing levels of focus and determination. David Goggins talks about when you feel like you're done, you're just scratching the surface. David Goggins, total psycho. That's why he's awesome. And I think actually that David Goggins probably does operate that red line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, that's not what I want for you. I think that just having a good reminder of what's at stake, having a good reminder of what it is that we want, and doing that on a consistent basis, certainly quarterly, I think is a good time to take a break, take a step back and say, okay, how are we doing? Where do I need to turn the volume up a little bit? Where do I need to up the ante? Where am I retreating? What boats, what escape boats, what lifeboats, what life rafts do I have that I'm leaning too much on? That I need to set on fire, sink, run aground, destroy, so I can get back to the focus and the drive that I really need. And that's what this is all about. Got to keep it moving. Feel the feelings, feel the fear, feel the anxiety, feel that desperation, and channel it into courage and creativity. Keep it moving, keep building, keep growing. Let's go. Do your part by doing your best.